What's up guys, Manny from Motomillion. It's time to tackle the handlebars of this Panigale V2. Well, we're at that stage that we're going to be doing our handlebar setup, meaning that we're going to change our brake master, clutch master, our upper triple, clip-ons, our beloved WRS MotoGP type switch panels, and our brake and clutch reservoirs while we're at it. And also we're going to upgrade our damper with the Ohlins damper, the steering damper that is. And also while we're changing our master cylinders, we're going to change our bleeder valves to the stallless bleeder valves because it's going to make it that much easier for us to bleed the system. If you guys watch my first ride video, the brakes can be a little sharper on this motorcycle, so the master cylinder is going to definitely help. And then once we're done with all this, we're going to start with our full Ohlins suspension conversion on this Panigale V2 to continue on the project, but that's for another episode. Right now, that's a lot of parts to install, so let's get to it. Here's the piece. So here's our new clip-ons by Ducabike, or as known as DBK now. Before I even pull anything off or remove any of the reservoirs or the master cylinders, I first want to double check because these are actually new updated part numbers. I want to make sure it fits on our V2. It's supposed to fit, but I want to double check before I tear it apart even further so that we know this diameter here is the correct diameter for our forks. And obviously our forks that we ordered are the same diameter as the stock forks. That's when we know that once we set everything up, we could pull the forks down and replace them with the Ohlins ones as well. So, and here's our new triple, guys. I'm not going to put the triple on. I want to check the thickness of the triple is going to be thin enough so that it goes on top of the handlebars and then everything fits perfectly, because obviously we can't have this triple stick out more than the forks top parts, and that's what I want to check. Again, I'm only doing this, you don't have to do this because these are brand new parts. This has been around, but these clamps have not been, the clip-ons, and I just want to slide it in just to make sure that everything is good. And from what I see, once it slides down to the position, it's in the right place. We could even probably, if I dare to, just slide this down in place just to see what it looks like, and this thing goes in. Perfect, so everything works out. So now I want to pull this back off. You guys got a teaser of what it looks like. But don't worry, there's a lot more stuff going on than just these two things. Let me put my handlebars in place, swap out everything that's on the handlebars, swap this steering damper, and then we're gonna have a complete new handlebar setup. And for our master cylinders, guys, you're gonna be running the Corsa Corta 17 RCS on the brake side. And also for the clutch side, we're gonna be running the 16 Corsa Corta on the clutch side. I'm gonna get it on there. I'm gonna do the plumbing, meaning I got to do the brake lines, and also I'm going to run the reservoirs and our custom brackets that we have and run some tie-gun tubing for the reservoirs. And then all that's going to be left is actually plugging in our switch panels, putting our grips on, and then our bar ends if we're going to be running any. Well, here's the left side panel out, guys. I wasn't expecting to remove the panels because on the Panigale V4s, the switches are directly plugged in here. I'm still not sure because I don't want to take the switches apart, so I'm taking the panels off, and then I'm going to trace the connector. So then we're going to put the handlebar switches, the grips, and then we'll switch on to the other side. And I think at this point, since I took the panels off, we're going to dig in deeper and not just do handlebar setup. I think we'll do our carbon fiber body fitting that we wanted to do for a long time before we send them off to paint. And also, I see our batteries here. We're going to probably run an anti-gravity lightweight battery as well. Not in this episode, but in the upcoming episodes, because I'm not going to put it fully back together after I did all this work. So it's going to be a naked Panigale V2 for a little while. Well, this is the first thing I removed. This is your clutch sensor switch. When you run an RCS or RCS Corsa Corta master cylinder, this gets deleted. It has no purpose other than telling your motorcycle that you are clutched in or you're clutched out. In this case, it's a switch that will go clutch in, clutch out. The only thing that's not going to work once you remove this off your Panigale V4 Panigale V2, Street Fighter V4 is that the bike's not going to know anymore that you're clutched in or clutched out. So you always have to be in neutral for the bike to start. You can't start it in gear by clutching it anymore. Everything else will work just fine. So you could delete this if you're running an RCS master cylinder. There's no other way around it. Technically you got to delete it, or you got to run a pressure switch. The pressure switch kind of works on the Street Fighter models better because it does add a considerable amount of thickness to your banjo over here. And with sport bikes, as you know, we need as much clearance as possible to go full left, full right. We usually delete them. Even on our Street Fighter build, we deleted it and we showed it to you. In this case, I want to show you this again because this is a very common question that comes up when you upgrade your clutch master cylinder on the Ducati's Panigale and the Street Fighter models. And now I'm going to show you our switch panels. We've done many of these on almost all of our Street Fighter builds and the Panigale builds that we do. We love these things. On the V4 build, we didn't use it because it kind of doesn't make sense. This is a very, very sport bike oriented piece. It wouldn't look right on a cruiser, but this is a sport bike. What does this do? So these are the switches that you see on the World Superbikes and on the MotoGP bikes. Basically, it's for looks. If you track your bike, this is more crash resistant than the plastic piece. If you ever go down on track, you're gonna be able to ride still using all your mode functions and everything else that you need by having one of these. This is CNC machined aluminum. This takes the impact really well. That's why they actually use them on the race bikes that use plastic switchgear. In this case, this is a street setup. It has all the street functions, your turn signals, headlights, and all the other up-down functions that you need. We're gonna run this on this beautiful bike, and then I'll show you what we're doing on the right side as well. And this being a Panigale V2, you must change the right side once you do the master cylinder, but we'll go into the details why in a little bit once I get to the right side of the bike. The left side is plugged in. It's not complete yet because I don't want to tighten any of the zip ties before I know the ultimate position of where this button is going to be. And also, I don't know where this button is going to be because I don't know what angle this is going to end up in. So what we're going to do is that we're going to do the right side clip-on as well, transfer everything over, and then we'll do a test of left and right to make sure it's not hitting anything. We got full range of motion on our steering. Once our steering angles are done, we could tighten up all the cables together. We could do our reservoir mounting to make sure we can make those clear. And then we'll continue on, maybe put the bodywork back on, or we'll continue on with the project in another episode. So I just took the right fairings off and I realized something. This zip tie here that was cut from the factory has been digging into the coolant hose. You could see that it's eaten away quite a bit of the coolant hose already. I don't know how well you'll see it, but eventually this will cause a coolant leak. What we'll do is that we'll probably turn this around and cut this off properly, and then we'll continue on. And I'll tell you a good story while we're here. When I see this, this makes me cringe when you have a zip tie cut like this. I had a friend who worked for a very, very reputable high-end race team. You'd get fired off the race team by leaving it like this because if you take a look, I cut myself, and in a racing environment, if you cut yourself, you technically are handicapped to do the rest of the work. And in the endurance world, that means a lot. So you'd be fired by leaving it like that, but I guess not from Ducati, but we'll fix it. It's a good point to check out if you have a Panigale V2 or any other bike that has any other cable ties like that around to make sure that there's no sharp edges. Luckily, we caught it in time. The bike just has a few hundred miles right now. We'll fix it and we'll continue on. Okay, remember I said that we got to change something on the right-hand side if we're switching to any kind of racing master cylinder. Let me quickly show it to you before I take everything apart because I almost forgot in the moment of things just trying to rip everything out of the bike. This is your RCS 17 Corsa Corta master cylinder. The profile of the master cylinder, when I say profile, is this body over here is the same between the Corsa Corta and the non-Corsa Corta. And when the RR is released, which is not anytime soon, it'll probably have the same profile. If you'll take a look at the stock master cylinder, it has a slight bend to it where the master cylinder gets offset to the right side a little bit. What does that mean? So when you run this piece over here, it's pretty evident to me now, but if you take a look, this lever here is going to interfere with our throttle setup over here. That means that you got to delete this. Even if you're running the stock handlebars, you got to delete the start switch so that you could pull the master cylinder to one side so that you have clearance from the throttle. And how do you do that? You do it with one of these switches. This is a WRS start-stop switch, and it also has your hazards on it as well. It also has your flash to pass switches. Whatever that's on this side is exactly on here. And this doesn't go on your handlebar. You could by buying an adapter piece, but what you do is this master cylinder clamp comes right off. This switch acts as your new master cylinder clamp using your stock bolts that came off your master cylinder. Just like this. Now your right hand switch panel is a part of your master cylinder, and you can mount it right here by deleting this start stop switch that you have on the factory, so that this will be pushed all the way to the side and there'll be no interference. But for the sake of this video, we're upgrading everything. We're changing our start stop switch, obviously, to be able to run this. We're also going to upgrade this housing for the electronic throttle that we have. We're going to run the CNC machine one, and then everything's just going to look neat and tidy and beautiful on our motorcycle. What you see me do there was wire up our brake light switch. On the Panigale V2s, you can't just swap out the stock one that's on your stock master cylinder to the RCS. So I just started up nicely and used the plug right here. And this basically just will go on here this way. So I think we got to first run this for the wiring this way aside. And then this will just clip in right over here. But I think what I got to do is that I got to adjust my banjo angle. So this will go right there like that. And then I could probably just tighten this. I'm still going to do the final adjustments on our banjo angle. So there we go. And then we'll just run this in. We'll plug everything up. We'll clean all the wiring that needs to get cleaned up. The next wiring that we're going to run is for our throttle setup. And I'm going to show you by the piece that we're going to change this with. And this is another piece by Ducabike. We've ran this, I believe, on our Street Fighter V4 build as well. It's just a billet switch cover that goes on this piece. So this is our billet switch cover. This is our factory one. We're going to have to salvage this metal cover over here. It'll bolt right up over here. And what this does is this gives you a billet piece instead of a plastic piece. Again, these are usually made for crash protection, so if you go down on track, if this breaks, your day is over. This won't break, obviously, like plastic. It'll just get scuffed up or scratched, and you can continue on your day. If you have to change a clip-on tube, you just put a new clip-on tube and you go. And right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dissect this piece. I'm going to transfer it on here, and then that way we're going to ready to install our upper triple. And then we'll try to put all our reservoirs mounted and make sure that we have side-to-side movement. And we'll continue on with the rest of the parts on the bike. And in comparison, this is our stock plastic piece, and this is our new Ducabike piece. They're pretty much the same profile and size, so you're not going to save much room with this. But again, this is plastic. This is CNC machined aluminum. It has a lot more strength in terms of crash protection, and it also looks a lot better as well. So our clamp setup is on. So this is our, basically this is our right hand switch and throttle setup. What I'm doing is I'm making sure that there's no binding and there's just a smooth action on the throttle, which there is. Now I'm going to clean up all the wiring and plug everything in, and then we'll put our triple on with our setup for our new Ohlins damper. Then I'm going to try to do the side-to-side movements. Maybe I'll just plug some of the side panels in just to make sure that it's not touching the side panels, which I'm pretty sure most of the interference with the fairings is going to come with our upper fairing over here. So, but even though, maybe we'll just put the side panels on tested as well, and then I think we'll be done for today for this Panigale V2 until we continue on. But before I could say we're done, I gotta get all this done, and then let me show you how beautiful all this setup's gonna look. So this is our new beautiful adjustable damper. The Panigale V2 comes with a very, very basic unadjustable damper, which I have right over here. I mean, you want to be able to adjust it, right? Because this has the clicks that you're used to having on our Ohlins damper. You could go full hard, full soft, or any other setting in between. It really, really helps, especially if you're tracking the bike, or if you're riding pretty hard on the streets, let's say on a canyon road, and if you're shifting from one turn to other and you're on the throttle, if that front end comes up with your wheel being cocked, when you come down, you're going to get a shake. Or even if you're on a straight line and at a point where your front wheel comes off the ground and is slightly cocked when it comes down, you're going to start getting a head wobble. That's what the steering damper helps dampen down. It dampens that steering wobble that you have. And in terms of adjustability, if you could adjust it, you could suit your riding style. This is pretty much a swap over the stock piece. It comes with all this hardware. You don't have to do anything that we did in this video to be able to run this damper. I think it's one of the first mods that I would do on my Panigale V2. If I were to keep the handlebar setup at least stock, I would add an adjustable damper like this. The price you pay for this damper versus the margin of safety that you get is not even comparable. I'd really just grab a damper. They come in black like this because we're running a black setup, and also this is what came on the V4Rs, and that's why everyone wants the black one. They also come in a silver color as well. I think the black's a really nice touch, even though if you don't touch anything on your handlebar setup. But let's put this on, let's put our triple clamp on, and let's take a look at what we're having in terms of our handlebar setup, and then we'll continue on with finishing everything off. Okay, now we're up to the point that we're going to put a triple clamp on. I want to show something. This steering stem nut piece is the factory one. We usually can change it as well, but I kind of like to keep stuff a little bit in terms of contrast so that we have a little bit of silver here, and then once you put this over, you'll see that the contrast will continue onto our upper triple piece. So I'm going to leave the silver. You could choose black, red, gold pieces from Ducabike as well. But for the sake of this build and the color choice that we're going with, I'm leaving the silver. Let me just quickly pop this in place. This should go on fairly easily like this. And then when you're putting this on, you want to make sure, number one, you're bottomed out in the bottom. But I think I got to pull this handlebar down lower a little bit right now. Well guys, our handlebar setup is almost complete. We torqued our upper triple on just to make sure that everything fits as it should. Everything is looking beautiful. Obviously we're not done yet because we still have to put our reservoirs, our grips, and do the final adjustments in terms of the positions of our handlebar. But if you guys caught on at the beginning of the video, we said that these forks are changing to the Ohlins ones. It doesn't make any sense for us to put everything together, do all the adjustments, do all the angles to loosen it, to pull the forks off. So this is where we end this episode. We leave this beautiful piece like this, but tomorrow morning when I come back to work, we're gonna be hard at work filming the next episode. We'll pull the forks off, and in that episode you guys will see the final results. As it sits, it's a world of difference. And for you guys wondering, what does the upper triple do? So the upper triple can add stiffness or take away stiffness from your suspension setup. This triple is meant to give it more front end feel in this bike. That's what Ducabike have engineered this piece to do, to give it that elasticity that it needs to get more front end feel from your bike. If you're at a level to be able to tell more front end feel because of your upper triple setup, that's great. I don't know many people that are not pro riders that would be able to do that. In our case, it looks absolutely beautiful, all blacked out with just a silver stem nut in the middle. And then it's gonna look even more complete with the gold forks in our reservoirs. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Until next time, guys, have a good one.